the restaurant business is anything but boring. There's so much happening all the time, every day, innovation, things opening, sadly, some things closing, and a whole bunch of stuff in between. And every kind of concept, idea, place, size, shape, flavors that you can think of. And so it's taxing, all right? And if you think about it, an order comes in today, it gets picked tonight, it gets delivered tomorrow, and it better be the right item at the right price in the right condition, delivered at the right time. That's a lot in a 14, 15, 16, 18-hour period. So it's really a modern day miracle how that works.
Welcome to the Prosper Brief, a show dedicated to elevating the future of the food service and hospitality industry. I am your host, Jeremiah Wynn, and today we're diving into the future of food service and distribution and how technology is transforming the supply chain. With me are two change makers, Hans Schatz, Executive Vice President at Cut+Dry, a platform revolutionizing the way distributors connect and operate, and Aaron Barlich, President at BiRite Food Distributors, a company leading the charge in adopting smarter, more connected systems. All right, I just want to welcome Aaron and Hans. Welcome to the podcast. This is the Prosper Brief. We're so excited to have you guys here. This conversation about supply chain is going to be, I think it's going to be very, very, very just revolutionary. Aaron and Hans, you guys want to tell us about yourselves, please?
My brother Aaron will go first.
Yeah, you go ahead and start, Aaron.
All right, you got it. Well, Aaron Barlich, president of BiRite Food Service Distributors. We're a family-owned broadline distributor in the San Francisco Bay Area. Cover a good amount of Northern California, but we really kind of specialize in mid to high-end restaurants, caterers, parochial high schools, a few of the tech companies, some BI feeding, and some lodging and wineries up in the Napa Valley and down in Silicon Valley. So been working here as an adult for about 20 years, but most of my life otherwise.
You claiming that you've been an adult for 20 years? I don't know. We have to put that one up for a vote.
Many people would challenge that.
What about you, Hans? You want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Oh, absolutely. Hans Schatz, currently the Executive Vice President with Cut+Dry, one of the nation's largest industry e-commerce platforms. Aaron and his awesome company is one of our partners. Grew up in the business, 10 years in restaurant and hotel operations. Then did 25 years, a little bit more than 25 years in food service distribution, starting with a little company in Texas called White Swan. I don't know if you remember them, Aaron. White Swan.
Yeah.
A little fun fact is the S in U.S. Foods is the S from White Swan, because White Swan and the Frank Bevavino's Unifax Restaurant Group merged, became Unifax Swan Food Service, U.S. Foods. So that was in 1992. Right when that was happening, got hired by this really awesome company called Food Services of America. Moved up, and they moved me from Austin, Texas to Anchorage, Alaska. How you like that? It was like I did something wrong, but it was incredible. Had a wonderful journey. Ended up being a young division president for FSA. Then I was one of the corporate officers running, and we had 5 companies at the time, doing about $2.7 billion. I left in 2013. Got in the tech side of things. I was a founder, so I'm giving up my own story that I'm just a company, not the tech part. Then ended up as a CEO of a really cool craft beverage company, and that did food service, did retail, did a lot of co-pack, Shamrock Foods, Nicholas Foods, some of our big distributor partners. We did their upper end roasted coffees. Short stint with the nation's largest group purchasing organization. Actually, it's a big digital procurement company. They have a lot of companies. I had a really cool role with them. But my heart was in helping our industry really evolve, have this evolution that could create this really cool revolution. We'll talk about that some today. And I knew the people at Cut+Dry, and I knew Monty, one of the co-founders and the CEO. And one thing led to another, and I get to go live my dream and walk down the sidewalk that I wanted to be on when I tried to start my own version of this 13, 14 years ago. I know Aaron's laughing with you. And yes, me, I was a founder and the CEO, and I spent all my entire little micro fortune. Didn't quite get it off the ground, learned a lot. But so that preps us for this conversation today, because this is not really just a supply chain conversation. It's really about going from analog to digital, what that looks like and how that transforms the entire experience through the supply chain.
Absolutely. And actually, I want to start here and then go back, kind of in those movies where it starts at the end and it shows you how they got to here.
Yeah.
So, with your partnership between Cut and Dry and BiRite, can you guys tell me like what? Tell me about that partnership that you guys have.
Aaron, I'll let you take the lead on that one, and I'll clean it up.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, I mean, Cut and Dry serves as BiRite's digital online platform. So we started with Cut and Dry, really talking and forming the partnership a couple of years ago. But Cut and Dry is where our, really our online ordering space, our online marketplace that we really speak to and function with our customers. So it houses all the products that we sell. It's a place where our customers come. They become shoppers. They kind of connect with our company. They find out it's now been at this point it's been tied into our email campaigns, and it's where everyone kind of comes and learns more about our company and what we have to offer. So it's a place where now, and we actually had a sales meeting this morning, so it's kind of topical, but it's also a place where a new place and somewhere that's really helped us finish connecting our supplier community, which we developed those relationships and incubate over many years, and our customer base that many times, and I think before we got here we're really kind of cut off, and we were the ones trying to kind of communicate between them, but there was really no place for all three of us to talk. So, in some ways, that's what Cut and Dry has become for BiRite. It connects, suppliers and products and things that they're offering to the customers that are working with us and are sitting listening, kind of looking for solutions.
Nice.
Man, it's a good thing we're recording this. We have a not a rising star, we have a solid star. Yeah, and Aaron and the BiRite Group were partners with Cut and Dry with Monty, our CEO and co-founder, long before I was with the company. And I've known BiRite for a long time. Who's Steve to you, Aaron? Who is Steve?
Steve is my uncle.
So Steve and I, here's another fun fact. We served on a panel
Yeah,
together for IFTA probably
that's right.
13 years ago, something like that. And it's
Yeah.
funny because he's called, okay, Hans, here's what I'm going to say. How does this sound? That sounds good, but maybe think about this one sentence. Okay, good idea. I'll call you back. I said, no, let's talk it out now. Anyway, he was just a prince to work with.
No, thank you.
Wow. Okay. So, before we get to the past, so with this transition that you went through, adding Cut and Dry into BiRite, did you have any pushback from your current clients? Did it help? Did it enhance the performance? What was the initial reaction to this technology?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of my experiences in this role is no matter if you're bringing a plate of gold into the restaurant, if it's in a different box, it's going to get rejected. So, change is always hard, but this one went really well because the change we delivered was really a step up from what we were doing. So, previously before partnering with Cut and Dry, we were running much more basic online ordering system that had a mobile component to it, but it was very lacking in images and pictures. And for many, frankly, for many years, we had been pushed and asked by our customers to come up with something better. In the consumer space, I mean, people are so used to being able to get online and find their products and find out more about them and see what was going on. And this really brought that into our B2B platform and on the food service side, where we've been, the industry as a whole, and especially the independent distributors, were behind in offering that. You know, we joke with Cut and Dry that our customers were happy because, being in the Bay Area, we have had apps being shown to our customers, and frankly, right, it's a customer base that's very engaged on technology and IT and apps and what's going on. And they were all these cutting edge people in the restaurant industry that were doing these things, but then having to still phone an order into a tape or ask a question about a product and wait a couple days. And finally, a flyer arrives at their restaurant that was left on the desk in their office. So, it was well accepted by the operator community, and salespeople are they could get a little bit territorial with their customers, but as they've seen, and as this has gone rolled out, instead of having to be on the phone and answering questions about products or doing research, it's freed up their time. They've been able to, their customers have been coming back with some very positive feedback, and being able to find items a lot easier and find out much more about them. And so, they're seeing the benefits of it. So, overall it was very well accepted.
That's great. So it almost seems like Cut+Dry is almost like an Amazon, right? Where you can just get, like, if I own a business, I can go onto the website and I can select all the different things that I want, and then it'll come to me at some point. So it's almost like it
Yeah.
takes that sort of an approach, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it functions as the main shopping area for our customers that are looking to place their products. I'm sure I'll let Hans kind of add, what I think some, people on our side of the fence as distributors might have pushed back on is Cut+Dry serves as an area where, an operator, can go and they can place their order for, us as a broadline distributor, but they can also reach out and go ahead and shop with their produce company or their meat company or paper company or whatever it may be. So, it serves for the customer as a nice little solution. It's kind of a one-stop shop, and it makes their life easier, right? And as the distributor, you got to take a step back and kind of acknowledge that, and realize that it's okay. If we can't compete against those guys, or I think that's our job as the distributor, is to differentiate ourselves and make sure we're offering products and pricing that's well accepted by the customer. So it's a good space for us.
Yeah, and I would add that Aaron, you've got an A+ so far, by the way. So I picked the right partner, Jeremiah. And I would add that yes, Amazon's kind of a loose comparison, but it's back to what Aaron said, is that, listen, we want to give the operator, our customer, Aaron and mine's customer, a really rich user experience. Okay, we don't want them in the old way things were done, and there are lots of ways to cut orders. Operators place orders across the country, but they get an order guide and it says, CKN 4.0 B/L BTFY ... 10 £, and it's a chicken 4 ounce boneless butterflied 10 pound cake. Well, you got to know hieroglyphics. You got to know food service hieroglyphics to know that. Now take that, and then we're in a very, very transient industry. People go job to job to job. They get into food, they get out of food, they get back into food, they get back out of food. So when our customers have people placing orders, every time you touch a box, there's a cost. Every time that his facility, they bring in an order, they pick an order, they palletize it, they put it on a truck, they run that truck out, they take that box off that truck, put it in the customer. Customer goes, "That's not what I ordered." If you think about just getting there, how many touch points that was. So now, if you go from that food service hieroglyphics to a beautiful picture, multiple pictures, a rich definition and descriptions, nutritional, all the attributes, kosher, organic, natural, whatever, and then even recipes, and click here to get a sample. The experience, going back to your example of Amazon, we're not really, I wouldn't say we're just like Amazon. People like to use that comparison because it's a simple one. But we've reduced errors, and when Aaron's clients and his operator customers go in and shop, they don't just see that one picture; they see a lot of pictures, right? So then they start going, well, I want to see what that. Oh yeah, I'll take one of those, and then Aaron, we'll get into this a little bit more. But then Aaron's his company, his category management marketing folks can promote products on there, and so then it pops it up. So it's like when my wife gives me a shopping list of 12 items, and I go to the grocery store, I come back with 18. She's like, "What are the other 6?" "Oh, honey, you're gonna love what I got, because I saw them, and I can physically touch them. In this environment, you can you can visually touch them. And so what the this e-commerce platform experience has proven is that operators order more cases, and so it's and that at the end of the day, providing that rich user experience offers that desired outcome, is they can now get satisfied some things they're looking for, instead of, what is the independent now, Aaron, by 4, 5, 6, 7 suppliers, something like that?
That's fair. Yeah.
right? I mean, a couple big ones, a couple mid-sized
Yeah.
ones, a couple, that are filling in
My
some blanks.
salespeople will say they buy it all from us, but yeah, I would agree that it's
I
at
think
least
what they
five.
say is, boss, if you bring in this one item, I can get everything else. I think that's the line that's used most of the time,
Yeah.
and everything else sometimes is two other things. But
Yeah.
so that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're really trying to get the analog out of the system and give people this rich user experience that's 100% digital.
Yeah, I love that term, the rich user experience. And it does make me earlier before you got on, Aaron and I were talking about just the way that supply chains worked in the past. And when he was a young kid working with his company, how he would pretty much like the way that actually, I'm not even going to explain it. Aaron, please explain the way that the process was before technology advancements, when it came to the warehousing and how things were shipped and all that.
Well, Hans, I'm sure you would appreciate the old day. I was telling him we would go down to the warehouse in the 90s, and there would be a book at the end of the aisle that was on green bar, and you
Yes.
could flip through it and you could try to figure out where that item was located and then try to go put it away and see if you got the right one, right? And you get a sheet of paper and with some numbers, and you'd fill out the order that way, and hopefully it would get filled out, right? And the salespeople would come back by 2 and head upstairs to the crew that was smoking cigarettes and punching in
Exactly.
orders at
At their
their
desks.
desk,
Right.
right? And that was how things went, right? And the paper basket would bring the paper down to the warehouse from the office, and that's how you would do it, right?
Oh my
And
gosh.
so
I'm not sure
yeah,
if
I
these are
mean from
if this is flashbacks or PTSD. I'm not sure. It's or maybe it's a
yeah.
combo platter, but I vividly remember Telzons
Yeah,
plugging them in, and you're sending the orders through.
What was that
yeah.
experience like, Hans? Like you being new in the industry, like what was that experience like
New
at
back in
that
the
time?
late '80s.
Yeah,
New
back in
you're
the
talking
late
about?
80s, 90s. Yeah.
Well, well, first of all, it's such a dynamic business. And I was in Austin, Texas, oddly enough, where I am now. That's why I'm here, as my dad lives here. And the restaurant business is anything but boring. There's so much happening all the time, every day, innovation, things opening, sadly, some things closing, and a whole bunch of stuff in between. And every kind of concept, idea, place, size, shape, flavors that you can think of, and so it's taxing. All right, and if you think about it, an order comes in today, it gets picked tonight, it gets delivered tomorrow, and it better be the right item at the right price in the right condition, delivered at the right time. That's a lot in a what 14, 15, 16, 18-hour period. So it's really a modern day miracle how that works. Now, and back to Aaron's point, it is extremely, it's a heavy, heavy, heavy human equity business. There are some companies that have automation, but they still have a lot of people. Everything gets touched. So back in those days, it was overwhelming. And we did have the big we my sales book was a giant three ring binder. It had hundreds and hundreds of pages in it. All the items had a sequence of letters and numbers. They all meant something. And what that told us was that's the price you can sell from. Sell for as much as you can, right? And then in our book, Aaron, you might remember this. Some of the items had a little squiggly mark by them. And if you sold that item, you got points. And
Yeah.
the more points you got, at the end of the year, you got a thing that says, here's how many points you have. Here's the book. Go shopping. It's like, woohoo! I get a foot bath and an umbrella, whatever. And I always finish the top 3. That might shock you, but out of our whole division, we had about 60 sales reps. And so where it's gone from the technology standpoint to where it is today, there hasn't been huge changes. Laptops came out, mobile ordering came out, but not in an e-com platform. Just in a way where it wasn't so hard to place. You didn't have to find a payphone and have your Telton unit with all these weird numbers punched in and put it on and hope like heck that the signal didn't break so your order could go through because of course you're doing it 3 minutes before cutoff. And if you get it after cutoff, you got to call the really crappy guy and say, "Hey, can I get my order in?" And they make you beg and plead, then they do it. And so, you know, so fast forward to today, we've got these tools, part of what we're doing. What has not changed is the critical need for excellent service. Now, Aaron can tell you service doesn't mean one thing, it means a whole bunch of things, right? And service gets defined by the person receiving the service. We got we've got, big parts that we can talk about, but part of taking this digital, going in and having to manually sit down and take an order, or an operator having to call, either talk to a customer service person or leave it on a message machine, which they don't like doing because they're afraid that they're not going to get the one that they order every single week. Well, it's the one I order every week. Well, we know that because it's in your order guide, but they get nervous about it because they're doing just in time ordering. If it doesn't come in on the truck, they're prepping it that night to use the next day or whatever. And so what we're trying to do with this experience, and what would have been so awesome when I was, I don't know how many years ago, let's don't count, but back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was dragging it back of restaurants, if I could have spent that time Aaron and I sitting talking about his business and ideas I have, or something I just saw in a sales meeting, or I wrote with a broker and they said, hey, you should really go show this. Um, I could have had a much richer relationship with my customers. As it was, they called it ripping and running. You go in, you take the order. How's the kids? Da, da, da. Hey, I'll see you. Whatever my next visit is. Some of them get a couple of weeks, some get one a week, whatever. So I think this is a game changer for our industry.
So, was it really challenging the way things were going? Like with the ripping and running, with the I guess it seemed like with everything being done by paper and pencil, there's a lot more room for error. Did you see a lot of errors during that time? Was it something that was like a constant thing, Aaron?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I'll bring it maybe more onto the warehouse side too, right? Where you're same thing. You're picking orders by sheets and going to different locations. So that, in many ways, as technology came into that area a little bit even first, and you started getting our pickers wore headsets and they had voice coming in and telling them where to go, and then they would have to have like a number that they would say that would make sure they were getting the right thing. Well, that cut, we would make, say, 10 mistakes every night. You'd send them, a toilet brush when they ordered some green beans. And, you do that and you multiply that by every day. And it's crazy, right? And so we went from 10 a night to 3 a week, and so, the amount of time that frees up for the salespeople, the amount of frustration you take out of your customers, the amount of time you save everybody, just, gets all put back into, the industry, and you kind of get to get some more stuff out of it. So, same thing with these orders. I mean, it's still, we get to this side of the business, and, it's, one of the best things, in our area in California, the Bay Area, we're dealing with, we got English speakers, but there's plenty of non-English speakers. And boy, it sure helps when you can just look at the picture of the item in your storeroom and you can make sure you order the right one. And, when you're calling in that order, it just doesn't happen. You could say it and we can train people and they could look at the history and they could see what's going on, but there's just no replacement from the person really kind of seeing the pictures and seeing what's going on and making sure their order's right. And so, we talk about service and Hans mentioned it, but yeah, I mean, our whole job is that once that customer places the order, they don't have to think about it and they can get back to focusing on where they're making money. And it's not on buying groceries. It's on putting out great product and having as many customers come in and getting them to order lots. So if we can do that and make sure that those items show up and they don't have to think about it, then we're in a really good spot. And that's what we're looking to do.
So it seems like technology has always enhanced what you guys are doing. So why do, like in this industry, right, with supply chain, so why do certain companies or organizations or even people have a fear of technology and a fear of embracing what's coming out? Hans?
Thank you very much, Jeremiah, for tossing me that hot grenade. I will tell you that we have a rich industry. I already said that. The work that distributors, broadline, specialty, niche do is remarkable. Take an order today. Some of them are processing order. They're cutting fish, or they're packing produce or whatnot. Get it today, pick, pack, ship tomorrow, and have it come in most of the time right is remarkable. So, and there's a rhythm that goes with that. And so, and this business is highly human equity driven. It's people. People are doing this work. So when our industry, we're probably behind most every modern industry that you can think of. Certainly behind retail in the not in service or intelligence or ability or money making, any of that kind of stuff, but to be able to adapt technology to help uh, reduce some of those touch points, speed up that flywheel. To Aaron's point, that's why I hit on errors. Errors are a killer. It really upsets the customer, and it may ruin something. But every time that Aaron's got to touch a box, and every mile that box has to move, it costs money. So they're already working on razor thin margins. And when that happens, it's not a good outcome. So I think in a lot of, get outside of the big, two or three or four big distributors. Well, the top three: Cisco, US Foods, Performance Food Group, great companies, big companies, corporate companies. You start working down the line, they're family companies, just like the show man sitting in front of us. So it's second, third, fourth. Harbor Foods got their fifth generation person, Justin's son's in college. He's going to work for him when he gets out. You probably know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which I'm like, that is so amazing that you can keep this thing going. And but you've got legacy members of the families running these businesses, and this just wasn't how. That's not how we did it. That's not how we do it. And so, thank God for the Aarons of the world, because they're coming in and saying, no, hang on a second. Now we do a lot off this thing we call our phone. We order food, we buy airline tickets, we order shoes. By the way, did you get the shoes? They showed up. You should have them.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
right on. Yeah, right on. I want to see you wear them. That's what I want to see. And so we can take that behavior change and bring it into our customers with our operators and give them that rich experience. So I think it's a natural reluctance out of habit. Aaron, I'd love to get your feedback on this, because we see it every way you can imagine. There's a small group of early adopters, and there's a big group of laggards. The laggards will eventually, they'll be like, oh, they're kicking our butts. What are we doing? Well, you're still faxing in orders on this thing that's CKN four, nobody, that's not a good experience anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, the simple answer: if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so people have gone by this long, and from the distributor side, it's a cost. I mean, right, there is some investment, and from the ownership side, there's some investment, and the challenge a lot of us and our fellow distributor space is we run on some very legacy enterprise systems that run our business, and so it's not as easy as plugging in a couple things at the telephone matrix and making everything go. It's quite a programming challenge sometimes to get this thing to happen. And
Yeah, talk about how old some of those legacy systems are.
yeah, I mean, some of us still call it an AS400, right? Which I remember getting on the airplane and seeing a commercial for that, and when airplanes had the big pull down screens, right? And it's like when BiRite had just bought one around, I think it's like 1994. But yeah, I mean, we've been running some version of the same RP since the mid 90s, and so it's not API does not translate into what we do. So on the ownership and the distribution side, it's that kind of challenge, and just accepting, taking on that cost, and depending where you are, and the margins in our industry are very small. You gotta confront that and pick a time where it works. And then what we also face is the legacy sales system, and the salespeople that are involved with it. And I get it. They are in some ways losing control. And if you look at it of just today, and you keep your mind on today and tomorrow's order, then you're losing some control. I don't know what else to say. That was your relationship with the customer. Your whole purpose in life is to go into that restaurant and to grab the clipboard and to punch in an order, and hopefully the chef comes by and the table you're sitting at for 5 minutes and acknowledges you, right? And maybe they'll ask you a question about something that you might want to sell, and you might get 5 or 10 minutes doing that. So it's some work from us as a management team, and ownership is changing their mental prism and how that works, and defining what Hans said a little bit earlier about the value of getting in there and being able to talk about something other than what do you want tomorrow. That only will get you so far. You're not really helping the guy out. I mean, you're getting him along, but you're not really adding to that business. There's very little value there. And if you're just in there taking an order, what we would say from the ownership side is you're very easily replaceable. You're a commodity. you're just going to be asked what's your price, and eventually, you might have your same cases, but not much is going to get done. So, it's weird. They give up that ability of taking the order. I mean, some of our salespeople would say that they're afraid that if their customer ordered, they would forget something, and they would get called up the next day and get told that they're supposed to bring it out to the customer and fix it. So, they got to get through that change. But, once you get it and you invest in it and you see it, we've been proving out over time that, the benefits greatly outweigh that cost of change.
Yeah, can I hitchhike on that for a second, Jeremiah? I think what Aaron said is really important. I want to unpack it a little bit more. Number one, the average, it may not be at your particular facility, Aaron, but the average age of the food service distributor sales rep, DSR, is 57.7 years. 5 years ago, it was 56 point something years. 5 years before that, it was 55 point something years. You're following the trend? They're getting older. We're not getting right. So this reinforces Aaron's point that, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. I don't want somebody between me and my customers. So they're not seeing a broader picture. There's a little bit of that is you got to prove it first. Then once I start believing and seeing it, then I'll adopt it. That's number one. Number two, um, when I was running the entire sales force for Food Services of America, it was about 550, 600 sales reps at different locations. We had a bell curve, and about 8% of our reps were just supermen and superwomen. They were just killing it. They did every single thing you ever asked and more. Then we had this big bell curve of about 60-ish% that were good, but they kind of all fell in this big blob, and then we had the tail. They were either new or they were a dying star, right? So we snuff out the dying stars, we train the newbies, we get them into the bell curve. And so really that really super hyper vigilant. I'll do anything to grow my sales group. It's the early adopters. It's that big bell curve, that big blob in the middle that I saw because we did a lot of stuff at FSA that just waited. They waited and watched because they were scared. They were a little nervous, and some of them were just happy with what they were doing. They didn't feel like they needed to make more money and get more cases, and that's not what they told us, but that's what we knew. And I think it's interesting because BiRite's this amazing company in an absolutely dynamic market, which unfortunately you go up and down with some of those dynamics, right? But I've been doing this for a long time in lots of markets, and distributors say to me, and they say it now, especially Hans, how do we beat Cisco? Everybody wants to beat Cisco, right? Cisco's Darth Vader, whatever metaphor you want to put it. And I said, listen, we got to change one word. And listen, I got tons of respect for Cisco. I got a lot of friends that work there, so you're not going to beat them. They're an 80-something billion-dollar behemoth. That's your goal, then you're going to lose. Let's change one word. How do you compete with them? And let me tell you what they have that you don't have outside of some bigger purchasing power, a rich operator user experience. Because the guys that built Cut+Dry built that platform. That's where they came from. They built the Cisco user experience. So you go in, you got the pictures, you got all the information, you got multiple pictures, information, recipes, all that stuff, all that product taxonomy. And I said, you want to compete with them? You got to get away from a CKN 4.0 BL. You got to get away from the hieroglyphics. And you got to give well, that's what our sales reps are for. No. Your sales reps shouldn't be collecting an order. They should be increasing your business.
Yeah, I want to go back to one thing that Aaron said as well, or that you guys both kind of brought up. So with Aaron, your business being a third generation, right? Like you guys have been in business for a long time. How do you let the company know that you're willing to preserve the legacy of the organization while adapting to change? Because I know, like you said, if it ain't broke, it don't fix it. But how do you give them the peace of knowing, hey, I got this. Let's go. Let's move forward.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, great question. I mean, I think, the best way I could answer that would be, I think our relationships with our customers over time and how we've existed for 60 years is is kind of being known as a company that's going to deliver service and quality to your company and to be there, to be people that live in this area. And I think, you know, how that translates is, I think what we bring and what we stay consistent with is those values, and with that kind of the cultural values that we're bringing to the customer. And and I think part of that responsibility, right? I think we're known in this area as being, I like to think that we're known as being leaders in the industry and kind of being on the front end of what's going on. We're small and nimble, and we're family owned, so we can adapt and be ready to kind of take on those changes. Kind of, I think that's how we would frame ourselves against Cisco. Is, we're small and nimble, and we move. We can take these things on as they come. And I think, with that comes that responsibility, right, of delivering that level of product and service and technology to our customers. Is that, I think that's part of our service proposition and our value that we're bringing to that customer. Is that, if we're going to lead with service and we're going to lead with quality, then we have to have those technology tools that kind of come with that. And I think that's the trick, and I think that's the mistake sometimes that our distributors make is by bringing in technology that we're changing. I think what we're just improving by bringing technology is that, and that's where we're different than our larger national competitors, is we don't we're not penalizing the customer by working with our sales rep. We're not demanding that they go into the online ordering system and only use it and never talk to someone again. What we're saying is, here, get to know us better. Here's some resources that you can have, and here's some answers that you can get quickly and efficiently, and get back to running your business. So, I think that's the challenge for distributors like myself, right? Is you have to be able to, right? Technology doesn't replace who we are as a company; it just enhances it, right? And that's what we do.
It's interesting, and Steve, Aaron, you may know this, that we see some statistics, and at some point they ran it, like 50 something percent of I may be getting this percentage off a little bit, but I'm directionally correct, of orders placed through the Cut and Dry platform are between midnight and 1 a.m. Now think about that for a second. We don't have any sales reps going and collecting orders between midnight and 1. I don't think. Maybe there's some super special people out there, but it's 50% of their time, because it's at the end of the day. I got a moment. I got to collect my thoughts. I see what we sold. We're going to place an order. Now it's probably not a delay for the next day. It might be, but where the technology meets that operator where they are, gives them that ability, still have that rich experience, and then still when their sales professional comes by, they now get to have dialogue, as opposed to, like I said, grabbing the clipboard and, hey, do you need two? You only normally order four. You get it, doing that quick, as we used to call it, rip and run, where you got that order and you're off to the next place, because you got a certain amount of time and a certain amount of orders you got to collect. And so it just really changes the dynamics. And I do think that's part of the fear factor thing. What's this going to do to me if I've got this technology replacing what my high value? That's not your part of that is a mental shift. That's not your high value. Your high value is going in and helping
Yeah.
Hans's Bistro grow through new things, new ideas, new trends, what's going on around, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, no, Hans, there's a great point. I mean, that's something I've raised with our sales team, right? Is we don't, when we hired you, we didn't give you a typing test. We didn't, when we have our sales meeting, right? Like, I don't bring out the computer and who can do it the quickest, right? Like, that's not, we're teaching you guys about product, right? We're teaching you how to consult with your operator, right? It's like many of these things with technology, is we're trying to take that easy stuff out of the way, right? Like, let's get that out of the way and put your training and your experience and all your knowledge of the industry to work, because it's not working when you're typing in 2 cases of this and 3 cases of that, right? I mean, It's just not where your value is. So, right, we're trying to enhance that value of the sales rep, but it takes a while. It's people, it's
Right.
not that easy. It's easy for me to say because I'm not the one in that spot, right? But yeah, it's
Right.
tough.
Head and heart working together. No, it is tough. Listen, it's a tough, brutal business. Part of the reason why that age is getting, the average age is just clicking up a little older and older because the younger generation, they don't want to do that work.
Hmm.
The money's
No, I
good.
think the only job is harder is running a restaurant. That's what that's the
Terribly hard.
hardest one. Yeah.
Terribly hard. God bless the people that do that. Oh my goodness.
So Hans, so seeing that you're in a tech company, right? Usually, like tech companies, when I think of people who start up tech, they're people who just they love technology, right? And their goal is to find a solution. Well, find a problem and then create a solution for it.
Right.
So with you coming from the restaurant industry, how do you bring the heart and soul and the culture of the food and restaurant industry into the tech company that you're in?
Man, somebody gave you a good question to ask. I'm not sure. I'm just a smart guy. No, it's a super great question because Aaron will tell you, or go talk to an operator. There are so many tech companies. I was at the Restaurant Leadership Conference in Scottsdale this week, which home game for me. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they have the exhibit, the booths. I don't know if you've ever been to that, and it's kind of cool. A lot of chain operators, a lot of tech companies, and when you go through and you walk up and down, you know how it is, exhibits, and everybody, the people standing in their booth, and they got a pair of socks or a pin or whatever, and it is just screaming ones and zeros at you, and you don't feel that heart of hospitality. And I think it's a really good point you bring up. And I'm on the board of the Northern Arizona University's Hotel Restaurant Management School. I've been for about a decade. I help run the board. And what we do is we help the faculty and the students. We engage with the school. And what I tell the kids when I get to go in class is, to thrive and be really successful. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to be average today. That's my goal, just to be average. People I think they want to be really good at who they are and what they do. Said you have to understand what the heart of hospitality is, and you bring it everywhere you go. You're on an airplane, you see a lady, you put the suitcase up. That's almost like just general etiquette, hospitality. But in the food service world, it's a lot of little different things. And the great sales professionals do it. Yeah, the great operators in this business have that heart of hospitality. So when first of all, the company I went to work for, they've been in this space for a long time. I picked Cut+Dry. I know our two competitors. There's one that's a really big one that's more of a distant third. Great companies, nice people, good product. Product's not the same because the people that built Cut+Dry have been together, number one, for about 20 years, and Aaron knows the story. But they built a lot. Built out a lot of the dynamic e-com platform structure for Cisco Foods, and for some people it's like it's Dracula or Godzilla or whoever, the scary thing under the bed. But listen, Cisco's a big company. They are who they are, but they learned a ton. They learned how the industry functions, and they learned all this stuff we're talking about: inbound POs, on-time ordering, cash-to-cash cycles. All the capital it takes, all that product, the buildings, trucks, all that stuff. They learned all that stuff, and they built this digital platform. They learned a ton, and they went and built Cut+Dry from their experience at Cisco. They did not have a heart of hospitality. They wanted me to join their company because they didn't have a guy that grew up in this business. They had other people that came from other areas, and so I can sit and go have a coffee in the morning, a hot tea in the afternoon, maybe a beer in the evening with Aaron, and we could tell all the same stories together because I get it. I know how guttural it is. And growing up in the service side in restaurants and hotels, I know, and I worked for Hyatt, so at the time, Hyatt's still a great company, but at the time it was par excellence. And we had very, very high standards. So you learn, some of that's innate in you. Some of that you learn by being in great organizations and having great mentors and bosses that lift you up and say, hey, I'll tell you, when I was 16 years old working in a pizza restaurant, when I was in high school, and I was the assistant night crew, beginning, junior, really dumb, assistant manager, whatever my title was, it was that long. So all it means is I got to go lock the front door when we closed, right? And I had to go borrow the key from somebody. But walking to the restaurant one day with the owner, and there was a little scrap of paper about a quarter the size of my nail. And he was talking to me, and we walked by. I saw it. We walked by. We got about 2, 3 passes. He said, Tom, he goes, Hans, did you see that piece of paper? I said, Yes. Why didn't you pick it up? Because you were talking. Do you think that was a good reason? No. It's all the little things you do that's gonna that's gonna drive your career and make you good or even great. It's not the couple of big things. So when you take that hospitality, that heart of hospitality mentality, and you bring it into a tech company, and again, I think we've got amazing people at Cut+Dry, and they brought a lot of people in from the industry. It just accentuates what we're trying to do, especially when we have this conversation with our distributor partners, and even more so when we've got to talk to people and say, hey, we get it. We know what it's like when you got a bad debt. We know what it's like when a driver doesn't show up. Or I mean, I've witnessed everything you could imagine, including fatalities and all kinds of stuff. I pulled a guy out of a burning truck. He didn't make it. One of our drivers, which is a fluky, weird thing. And so all those things you can think of and imagine that you've been through that create sad moments, happy moments, hard moments, great moments, celebratory moments, defeating moments, give you the ability to sit in front of people and say, I understand. I think you can talk the language.
I love that. Okay, so we're almost out of time, but I have one question for both of you guys, if you guys don't mind. So go ahead and get your Houdini hats on. Where do you guys think the industry is going to be in the next 5 years? As far as like we have tariffs, we have who knows, like the new presidency coming in 3 years. Like in the next 5 years, where do you guys think the industry will be from a supply chain perspective? Aaron, we can start with you.
Oh man, yeah, I get the hot potato.
It's your turn.
You know, where will we be in 5 years? We'll be further down the road. I mean, there'll be with tariffs and everything else. It's going to be like it's not like the last 5 years weren't challenging enough. With COVID and restaurants being shut down and takeout and the whole kind of industry being turned on its head and DoorDash and all sorts of fun new elements. And now with tariffs and it should be another kind of wild ride. I mean, unfortunately, that's part of the problem is so much is so unknown right now that it's somewhat hard to predict what's going to happen in a few years down the road. There's too many unknowns. I don't feel very good about it at this date and time. But I think it's obvious that we're going to see more of this technology coming into the marketplace. I mean, I would imagine there's probably going to be some kind of new distribution player somehow poking their head through the tent. Because that's just how it's going to be. I mean, it's still an industry for as advanced as it is. It's still a little bit stuck in its ways, and there's still a lot of evolution and change, I think, to come. So I've painted a very postmodern picture with not many details for you there, but more of a Jackson Pollock. But that's what I got for you, unfortunately.
I love it. Well, Aaron, you and I could do this all day. Great question, Jeremiah. And I do think that because we've already discussed that the adoption is a little slow, but there's early adopters right now that are breaking boundaries. So the laggards will see that and they'll be like, oh, we want some of that. So it'll pull them through. I want to take a broader approach though. I think that what I see in the next 5 years is there's some things that are coming out of, I'm going to use the term lab, that are coming out of innovation rooms like ours, that if you think about the supply chain, there's three critical nodes: manufacturer, distributor, operator, right? That ought to be a super highway where information, products, resources, promotional tools, marketing should just flow and flow in a way that every single person wins in that engagement. It's not it's people say collaboration today means I got what I want, the hell with you, excuse my language. Did we collaborate? Yeah, I got what I wanted. Sorry that Aaron didn't get what he wanted, but that's kind of how there's a lot of stress in the supply chain. I see a day where that stress really becomes, I hate the word collaborative, but becomes very, very intentionally strategic, going from a forced kind of relationship to a strategic, almost financial relationship, and that manufacturers have a much better way to work with distributors, and together they have a much better way to communicate with operators, and operators get better resources so they can perform at a higher level. So all of us that are consumers, we get a better deal. Maybe not necessarily cheaper food, maybe better cost, but better everything. So the supply chain becomes this closed loop ecosystem that we're supporting each other. And it doesn't really happen that way today. It's bits and pieces, but not holistically. And I think that's what my dream is for our industry. That's what I see where Cut+Dry is playing a big role in helping that happen. And I think that, you look at just this today, the relationship and even the relationship we have, we could take it to another level. Those days are coming, and we'll almost be like business partners. And he'll get more cases on trucks. He'll get more margin. The operator will get better deals. The manufacturers will be able to say, "Hey, we communicated directly with Hans's Bistro and showed him some things that BiRite stuff, and we are so excited." And everybody, this flywheel is just going to start spinning faster, faster, and faster. And where it goes from there, who knows? Could it be more? But that's what I think.
Okay, I'm gonna check back on this 5 years from now. We'll see who's right. No, I love how hopeful you are. Speaking of me being hopeful, Aaron, do you know where I can get the cheapest eggs? Because this whole $6 a case at Winco thing is killing me.
I got to tell you, when you ask the guy from California, you're never going to find the cheapest product. It is not here.
Not even the cheapest sunset, because you got to be there, right?
Okay, well, I just want to thank you guys, Aaron, Hans. This has been such a great conversation. I hope our audience has received a lot out of this. I know I have. I'm looking forward to seeing what BiRite and what Cut+Dry do in the future. Thank you.
Jeremiah, you're a great host.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thanks for making time, Aaron.
We hope you found valuable takeaways to apply in your own organizations. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Prosper Brief on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next time here on the Prosper Brief.